My next guest has been one of the most outspoken critics of Governor Cuomo's executive order that created a health insurance exchange for the state. The exchange is a requirement of the Affordable Care Act, and by setting it up now, New York qualifies for federal money, some of which is already in-house. But Senator Greg Ball believes that New York's residents will ultimately be on the hook for the costs of the program. He's joining me tonight to explain his concerns. He's with me from the Capitol. Senator, welcome.
Hey, good to be here.
So, just this morning, the New York Times praised Governor Cuomo for going the executive order route, although did suggest that perhaps it would be wise if the legislature took another look at this, assuming, of course, that so-called Obamacare makes it through the Supreme Court, which we have yet to see. But why is it that you think this is simply not prudent? Those are your direct words.
Wait, you're saying that the New York Times praised?
Yes, I know you're
Governor
surprised.
Cuomo for issuing an executive order for Obamacare. That's amazing. I wouldn't have imagined that. I mean, I think that I'm not a constitutional scholar. Unlike a lot of people, I'm not not an attorney either. But I think that there are some grounds to be questioned whether the governor even has the prerogative to do this. I think it certainly, in my opinion, certainly should have involved the legislature. And this is the, if you just look at a grizzly bear at the face, it can be kind of cute. This is the grizzly bear's nose under the tent, and we're talking about a massive federal program. There are real costs that are associated with that. There's no doubt that in exchange, in theory, that there are a lot of good things that are part of the overall package, and there's things that we certainly should have done. But this overall federal program, there are real questions to its fate. And in my opinion, I know it makes great politics for the governor to do this. I'm sure it helps him shore up a base where he has been beating up his base pretty hard by pushing a lot of our Republican objectives over the past year and so. So it makes good politics. I question his ability to do it.
Okay.
And I certainly disagree with it.
Okay, so see, this is fascinating. You're not the first person to suggest that perhaps the governor has overstepped his power here. I did have someone on from the Heritage Foundation, and we'll just put it right out there. We're talking about people who come from the conservative side of the spectrum, and
Sure.
that's what's going on here. However, your conference has chosen not to challenge this. In Rhode Island, there's a lawsuit challenging a healthcare exchange that was created through executive order. Why are you guys not doing this? I find it, if you're so against it, why have you not challenged?
Well, look, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm one member of a conference. I don't make the big bucks. I'm not in leadership position. I can tell you that I think that it should be challenged. That's my individual opinion. I speak for Greg Ball and for nobody else. And I think that there's some rumbling and a bubbling here where we may see this be challenged either by an outside group or otherwise. And I think that would be a good thing. I do think that this was executive overreach. I believe that it certainly should have involved the legislature. And if it's challenged, I think that there are good grounds to overturn what the governor did.
It's interesting that you use the words executive overreach, because there have been some complaints from rank and file lawmakers that the governor, quiet complaints, because of course he's very popular, that the governor has tried
Sure.
to consolidate and succeeded in some cases, thanks to the legislature, to consolidate even more power than he already has, and we're a very strong executive state. I mean, do you think that this is political and the governor shoring up the base and maybe giving a nod to the president in an election year, but is it also the flexing of executive muscle, if you will?
Every governor, every executive, whether it be a governor, a county executive or whatnot, they're going to try to consolidate their power. That's the nature of the beast. I'm sure Governor Pataki, similarly did things as a Republican to shore up the executive's power. Now, it's within our interest to make sure that there's a checks and balance that's there. This governor, by having that power and expanding on his executive power, has gotten a lot of good stuff done that we care about, like
True.
a property tax cap, balanced budget. And up until this point on Obamacare, I've been happy to see this governor be extremely aggressive and constructive in the same way. But I certainly feel that in this instance, maybe it made political sense for this to be done, and maybe some people would feel both sides. But I believe it's a direct overreach by the governor. I personally would like to see it challenged. And at the end of the day, when the federal government is offering all sorts of carrots, it always comes with a stick. This is a much larger program of which the very likelihood of it eventually becoming the law of the land as is in question on two fronts. Number one, the Supreme Court, which is kind of a big deal.
Right.
And number two, the possibility of Mitt Romney, who in some polls is actually ahead of the current president. So
right.
outside of the politics, I don't think it made sense to move forward aggressively on this.
If you would be so kind as let me ask you about two other unrelated policy issues that are sort of percolating along at the Capitol now that you guys are back from your spring break and we have the rest of the session ahead of us. One of them is minimum wage. The business community, particularly small businesses, very down on this and are sort of, I'm hearing from folks in the business community, drawing a line in the sand, saying to you, Senate Republicans, don't move on this one, because if you do, we're really going to be angry at you, and you've given the governor and the Senate and the Assembly Democrats a lot. You've moved a lot. Do you think that there's any possibility that the conference will move on this one?
I certainly think that the line in the sand should be strong on this, and people have to realize that in this tight economy where small businesses are closing their doors every single day, by increasing it, we could actually see a contracting of the economy and their internal budgets where they actually are capable of hiring less people and have to actually lay people off because of that higher wage rate. This isn't a time where we need to be tinkering. We need to actually be working comprehensively to help small business owners expand jobs, remove some of the regulations and some of the fees and some of the taxes that were put in place previously, and an increase in the minimum wage. At this point, we have to do everything we can to help blue-collar people, have to help struggling working families, but you don't do it by putting more small businesses out of business that employs 70% of those struggling families.
And is that sort of the general feeling among your conference members? I do know that the majority leader has put the kibosh on minimum wage, but you never know. Things in Albany just sort of pop up and change pretty quickly.
You know, quite honestly, it hasn't been conference yet, but I would think that would be the general consensus.
And the other issue is campaign finance reform, establishment of a public campaign finance system. Now, you used to be an outsider. You ran against the party. You ran against the majority. Now they're backing you, but we'll leave the politics to a different day. However, as an outsider, raising money, you know, is difficult as a challenger. Establishing a taxpayer-funded finance system, is that something you think that the Senate Republicans might be able to do?
You know, I got to tell you, I know that they're sending mail in my district. I wish they used a little better picture. The picture of me isn't
not flattering.
Too nice. Not flattering at all. I think I was about 20 pounds heavier, but and I'm next to Rob Astorino, who is just absolutely perfect. So it's not good. But on this issue, especially during the economy the way it is right now, where we're trying to make sure that every budget is balanced and try to find every dollar and every penny, it's a very tough sell to make the sell that now that taxpayers should be flipping the campaigns and out of the public coffers paying for these campaigns. I get the overall argument on reform. If people really want to continue to reform Albany, and we've made some advances on ethics reform and otherwise, what they have to do is look at outside income. If you go on my website or on the state website, you can see when my grandmother, God rest her soul, she gave me $100, and you can see when some local builder gave me $5,000, and that's publicly disclosed. The problem is that you have private transactions even currently where somebody can be an attorney and that local developer can go into a business deal or any other profession with that local senator or assemblyman, and we're talking about tens of thousands, if not millions of dollars in transactions all across the state. They're not publicly disclosed. And that's really the tougher issue that nobody wants to talk about. If you're really going to reform Albany, you have to make the service in Albany, in the legislature, not profitable. And make it so people come here, they sacrifice, and they get the heck out and go back into the private sector. This place should not be profitable. This shouldn't be a place for the rich and well-connected to get richer and more connected. And unfortunately, while we've seen reforms, we definitely haven't gone far enough on that front. And that's why the public financing, and to me, is almost a non-issue if you don't clean up the fact that on their private bank accounts, that we still allow these transactions and allow them to use their legislative position for their private benefit.
Well, haven't seen the bill yet, of course, so we don't know exactly what's going to be in there. We shall see. I want to thank you, Senator Ball, for joining us this evening. It's always good to see you.